Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather to explore a truth as old as time and as powerful as the heartbeat within us, the courage to trust God completely. Life is a journey filled with twists, turns, and unseen paths. Yet, when we surrender our fears and our plans to Him, we discover a guidance that is gentle, unwavering, and filled with love. Let us open our hearts to the divine wisdom that leads us, not only to survive, but to thrive in grace, strength, and purpose. Surrendering our plans is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of courage, a declaration that we are willing to place our lives into hands far greater than our own. So often we clutch our intentions tightly, imagining that we are the architects of our destiny, believing that our careful calculations, our strategies, our timelines, and our understanding of the world are enough to steer the course of our lives. Yet, in the quiet moments when the noise fades and the heart is exposed, we realize that the more we hold on, the more constrained we become. There is a freedom that comes only when we loosen our grip on the certainty we crave and allow the unseen hand of God to guide our steps. It is in surrender that we find the divine rhythm that has always existed, waiting for us to notice, waiting for us to yield, waiting for us to trust. Many of us think that surrender means giving up, that it means relinquishing ambition or desire, that it means becoming passive observers of life. But surrender, as God teaches us, is an active choice, a conscious decision to stop wrestling against the current and instead float in the flow of divine providence. To surrender is to acknowledge that our vision is limited, that our understanding is small, and that God's wisdom encompasses the breadth of the universe and the depth of our souls. There is a peace in this realization, a peace that begins as a whisper and grows into a quiet certainty, a reassurance that the path we walk need not be paved with our own insistence, but is already mapped with care, love, and intention by one who knows us more deeply than we know ourselves. When we surrender our plans, we invite guidance that is patient, compassionate, and wise. Life often challenges us with circumstances that shake our foundations, with experiences that test our resilience, and with decisions that make us question everything we thought we knew. In those moments, it is tempting to double down on control, to force outcomes, to demand that the pieces fall exactly where we imagine they should. But surrender asks us to pause, to breathe, to recognize that the pressure we feel is not a signal to fight harder, but a call to trust more fully. God's guidance is subtle, sometimes appearing in the quiet voice of intuition, sometimes through the unexpected kindness of a stranger, sometimes in the sudden clarity that arrives when we are still. It is never coercive. It is never impatient. It is never fleeting. It is steady, consistent, and always aligned with our highest good, even when our eyes cannot yet see the pattern. Embracing God's guidance means embracing a journey that may not look the way we imagined. It means understanding that detours are not failures, that delays are not denials, and that obstacles are not signs that we are lost. Every unexpected turn carries a lesson, a gift, a redirection that serves a purpose we might not yet comprehend. When we insist on controlling every detail, we risk missing the subtle signs, the gentle nudges, and the powerful interventions that can transform our lives in ways we never dreamed possible. To embrace God's guidance is to move forward with faith, to walk with courage, and to trust that each step, each pause, each twist, and each leap is part of a greater design that leads us exactly where we need to be. Many of us wrestle with fear when we surrender. Fear whispers that letting go is dangerous, that releasing control will leave us vulnerable, that trusting in the unknown is reckless. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting in faith despite the fear. God does not ask us to surrender blindly. He asks us to surrender knowingly, to recognize the difference between what we can control and what we cannot, and to place the weight of the uncontrollable in His capable hands. This act of surrender is both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it acknowledges our limitations. Empowering because it allows us to move forward unburdened by the need to manipulate every outcome. In this space, we find clarity, purpose, and the energy to engage with life fully, not out of desperation or anxiety, but out of trust and hope. Surrendering our plans is also an invitation to creativity and resilience. When we stop clinging to a rigid vision of how things should unfold, we open ourselves to possibilities we could never have anticipated. We begin to see opportunities where we once saw obstacles, to discover strengths we never knew we possessed, and to meet people who can guide, support, and inspire us along the way. Life becomes a co-creation, a dance between our efforts and God's guidance, where each step is meaningful and each movement contributes to the beauty of the whole. Embracing this dynamic allows us to navigate uncertainty with grace, to adapt without losing our sense of direction, and to celebrate the unfolding of our lives as a journey of trust and discovery rather than a relentless pursuit of control. In practical terms, surrendering our plans requires reflection, prayer, and attentiveness. It requires us to pause daily and ask, am I holding too tightly? Am I trying to force outcomes that are not mine to force? It requires listening for the quiet nudges, the subtle signs, and the moments of clarity that guide our choices. It means seeking wisdom from God, not only in the moment of crisis, but in the ordinary, seemingly mundane decisions of our day. It means cultivating patience, knowing that guidance may unfold gradually, over weeks, months, or years. It means embracing humility, understanding that we are part of a larger story that is unfolding according to a plan we cannot fully grasp. And it means nurturing faith, trusting that as we release our own agendas, we make room for the extraordinary, for blessings that surpass our expectations, for outcomes that align with our highest good and the good of those around us. Trusting God's guidance also transforms our relationships with others. When we surrender our plans, we are less likely to impose our will on those around us, less likely to demand that the world conform to our expectations, and more likely to approach others with compassion, patience, and understanding. Surrender allows us to listen deeply, to respond thoughtfully, and to engage authentically with the world. Our interactions become less about control and more about connection. We begin to see each person, each encounter, each circumstance as part of the divine orchestration, and we move through life with the knowledge that we are not alone, that we are guided, and that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. Surrender is not a one-time act. It is a continuous practice, a daily commitment to align our will with God's, to place our plans in His hands, and to walk forward with faith and courage. It requires vigilance against the temptation to revert to old patterns of control, against the fear that arises when outcomes are uncertain, against the doubt that creeps in when life does not follow our timeline. Yet, with each act of surrender, with each moment of trust, we grow stronger, wiser, and more attuned to the divine guidance that is always available to us. We learn to move with the flow rather than against it, to act with intention rather than reaction, and to live with purpose rather than anxiety. Ultimately, surrendering our plans is an invitation to live fully. It is an invitation to embrace life not as a series of problems to solve, but as a sacred journey to experience. It is an acknowledgement that while we may not have control over every circumstance, we have control over our response, our attitude, and our willingness to trust. When we surrender, we align ourselves with a source of wisdom, love, and guidance that never falters, never abandons, and never leads us astray. In surrender, we find peace, clarity, strength, and the courage to step boldly into the life we were created to live, guided not by our own limited understanding, but by the infinite wisdom of God. Trust transforms fear into faith. This is a truth that cannot be grasped superficially, for fear is one of the most potent forces within the human heart, a shadow that whispers doubts, a weight that presses upon our chests, a storm that shakes our foundations. Fear appears in many forms: the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of the unknown, the fear that we are not enough. It creeps quietly into our thoughts, insinuates itself into our decisions, and constrains the freedom of our spirits. And yet, within the very same heart that harbors fear, there exists the capacity for trust, a trust so profound that it can transmute anxiety into courage, doubt into certainty, weakness into strength, and uncertainty into unwavering faith. Trust is the bridge, the passage from trembling to triumph, the alchemy through which fear loses its power and faith emerges radiant and unshakable. To understand this transformation, we must first confront fear honestly. Many of us attempt to ignore it, to push it aside, to tell ourselves that if we close our eyes and look busy, fear will disappear. But fear is persistent, and avoidance only gives it more space to grow. To transform fear into faith, we must name it, face it, and acknowledge its presence in our lives. We must recognize the moments when it grips our hearts, when it clouds our vision, when it whispers that we are inadequate or unworthy. This recognition is not a defeat. It is the first step toward liberation. By acknowledging fear, we begin to strip it of its power, for fear only controls us when it remains unspoken, unseen, and unchallenged. Trust, then, is the antidote to fear. Trust is the conscious decision to believe in something greater than ourselves, something that cannot be measured or contained, yet is always present, always faithful, always loving. Trust is the quiet voice that tells us that even when the ground shifts beneath our feet, we are held. Trust is the hand that guides us through darkness, the light that illuminates the path when the way seems uncertain, the assurance that no matter how fierce the storm, we will not be swept away. It is trust that allows us to breathe deeply, to stand tall, to move forward with courage, even when our hearts are trembling. And as trust grows, fear diminishes, not because danger has vanished, but because we have discovered a strength within us that is stronger than fear itself. Faith is born in the soil of trust. When we trust, we open ourselves to the possibility of the impossible, to the unfolding of a plan far greater than anything we could imagine. Fear is constricting, narrowing our vision and limiting our choices. Faith is expansive, lifting our gaze to the horizon and opening our hearts to new possibilities. Fear whispers, "You cannot endure this. You are alone. You are not enough." Faith responds, "You are not alone. You are loved. You are equipped. You are guided." Trust is the mechanism through which this response becomes alive within us, the channel through which fear is softened and faith is awakened. The transformation from fear to faith is not instantaneous. It is a journey, a process, a cultivation. Like a seed planted in fertile soil, trust must be nurtured, watered, and given time to grow. It grows through moments of reflection, prayer, and meditation. It grows through the daily acts of choosing faith over panic, hope over despair, courage over avoidance. Every time we step forward despite uncertainty, every time we make a decision guided by trust rather than fear, every time we act in alignment with divine guidance rather than the anxious chatter of our minds, we strengthen the roots of trust and allow faith to flourish. The transformation is gradual, but it is real, profound, and life-altering, reshaping our inner landscapes in ways that ripple outward into every aspect of our lives. Fear often disguises itself as rationality, telling us that caution is wisdom and that hesitation is prudence. Yet, when fear masquerades as reason, it can paralyze us, keeping us confined in a narrow space of what seems safe but is ultimately limiting. Trust is the courage to see beyond this illusion, to step into uncertainty with confidence, and to believe that even if the path is unclear, it is being guided with divine precision. Trust asks us to act, to make choices, to take risks, and to move forward even when the outcomes are unknown. In doing so, it dismantles fear's hold and replaces it with a faith that is active, dynamic, and transformative. To trust is to align ourselves with a higher order, to recognize that life is orchestrated with a wisdom beyond our comprehension. When fear dominates, we act as though we must control every outcome, as though the universe is waiting for us to micromanage our destiny. When trust dominates, we act with intention, guided by faith, recognizing that while we are responsible for our actions, the unfolding of life is guided by a power that is infinitely greater than our own. Trust allows us to move with grace, to navigate challenges with resilience, to respond to setbacks with hope, and to embrace opportunities with courage. It transforms the way we perceive the world, shifting our focus from scarcity to abundance, from limitation to possibility, from despair to hope. Faith nurtured by trust also transforms our emotional and mental landscape. Fear breeds anxiety, doubt, and despair. Trust fosters peace, clarity, and confidence. When we place our trust in God, we create a space within ourselves where fear loses its dominion. We begin to see challenges not as threats, but as opportunities, obstacles not as roadblocks, but as invitations to grow, and uncertainty not as a threat, but as a canvas on which divine guidance can paint. Trust is the lens through which we reinterpret life's events, the filter that allows us to perceive blessings even in trials, the anchor that steadies us in the turbulence of existence. This transformation is evident in every area of life. Relationships flourish when fear is replaced by faith, for trust allows us to engage with others authentically, to extend grace, and to embrace vulnerability without the constant need for defense. Work and creativity flourish when fear is replaced by faith, for trust frees us to explore, to innovate, and to pursue our calling with courage. Our health, our peace of mind, our joy, all are nurtured when we choose trust over fear. For faith brings a sense of wholeness and alignment that fear cannot provide. It is as though a heavy burden has been lifted, as though the tightness in the chest has loosened, as though the heart is breathing freely for the first time. Transforming fear into faith requires vigilance, for fear is persistent and will return if neglected. It requires daily practice, conscious decision-making, and a commitment to trust even when circumstances tempt us to doubt. It requires turning our gaze upward, listening for guidance, and grounding ourselves in the truth that God's presence is constant and unwavering. Each act of trust weakens fear's grip and strengthens faith's foundation. Each moment of choosing belief over worry, hope over despair, and courage over avoidance compounds until faith becomes our default response rather than fear. Stories of transformation abound, yet they are not distant or abstract. They are within reach of each person willing to step into trust. We see individuals who faced overwhelming challenges, who stood at the precipice of despair, yet chose to trust, and through that trust, fear dissolved and faith blossomed. We see families mended, careers revived, health restored, and spirits renewed, all through the quiet, persistent act of surrendering fear and embracing trust. Each act of trust is a victory, a triumph over the limitations that fear imposes, a reclamation of the heart's natural state, which is faith, courage, and love. Trust transforms fear into faith, not by eliminating challenges, but by reshaping how we perceive them. The storms of life remain, the uncertainties persist, and the obstacles endure, yet in trust, we navigate them differently. We approach life with resilience, with patience, with grace, and with hope. We no longer see fear as a signal to retreat, but as an invitation to step forward, guided by the hand of God, buoyed by faith, and fortified by trust. Fear becomes a teacher rather than a tyrant, a signal rather than a prison, a companion in the journey rather than a master of our destiny. As we cultivate this trust, we also become beacons of faith for others. Our courage inspires, our resilience encourages, our faith illuminates the way. When others witness the transformation from fear to faith within us, they see not only the power of trust, but also the presence of God working through us. We become living testaments to the truth that surrender, belief, and trust can reshape lives, heal hearts, and ignite hope. Fear no longer defines us, faith does. Our lives are marked not by limitation, but by possibility. Not by anxiety, but by assurance. Not by hesitation, but by bold, confident movement toward purpose and destiny. Trust and faith together become a rhythm, a cadence that guides every step, every thought, every choice. Fear may attempt to enter, yet it finds no foothold, for trust has prepared the ground and faith has anchored the soul. Life becomes less a struggle for control and more a journey of alignment, less a battle against circumstances and more a dance with divine guidance, less a series of worries and more an unfolding story of hope, courage, and purpose. Trust transforms fear into faith. And in that transformation, we discover the freedom, the strength, and the joy that have always been available to us, waiting only for us to open our hearts, surrender our doubts, and embrace the boundless possibilities of living in faith. Divine timing is perfect, and patience is essential. It is a truth that often challenges the restless heart, a lesson that the human spirit must learn through experience, trial, and reflection. We live in a world that prizes immediacy, that rewards speed and instant gratification, that teaches us to demand results on our own schedules. We check our watches, our calendars, our timelines, and we measure our progress with the yardstick of human expectation. Yet, life does not always unfold according to our meticulous plans, our fervent desires, or our urgent timelines. There is a rhythm, a pulse, a cadence to the universe that operates beyond our comprehension, beyond our control, and beyond our impatience. Divine timing is a force of such precision that even when we cannot see the full picture, even when our hearts ache with longing, even when the delays feel unbearable, every moment is orchestrated with intention, care, and perfection that surpasses our understanding. Patience is not passive. It is active engagement with the present while holding faith in what is to come. To practice patience is to cultivate a deep trust that God's timing is perfect, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. It is to resist the urge to force outcomes, to acknowledge that our own understanding is limited, and to open our hearts to the unfolding of life's plan at its own pace. We often grow frustrated with delays, feeling that we are stagnating, that our efforts are wasted, that the world is passing us by. Yet, in every pause, in every waiting period, in every moment of seeming inactivity, there is a divine preparation taking place. Seeds are being sown, strength is being built, wisdom is being cultivated, and blessings are being readied for a harvest that only God can time perfectly. Understanding divine timing requires humility, the recognition that our view is finite, our comprehension incomplete. We want to see the entire path laid before us, to control each step, to ensure that every detail aligns with our desire. But divine timing reminds us that life is far more intricate and far more beautiful than we can imagine. What we perceive as delay may be protection. What we perceive as disappointment may be redirection, and what we perceive as stagnation may be the invisible work of God, molding us, shaping us, and preparing us for a season we cannot yet envision. Patience, therefore, becomes the instrument through which we align ourselves with this timing. It is the practice of trusting, waiting, and believing that all is well, even when evidence seems scarce, even when the heart trembles, and even when the mind questions. In moments of impatience, fear and doubt often arise, whispering that we are missing opportunities, that we are falling behind, that our efforts are in vain. But divine timing teaches us that these moments are tests of faith, invitations to trust more deeply, and opportunities to grow in resilience. Each pause, each delay, each season of waiting is a chance to cultivate a heart that is ready to receive blessings when they arrive, a spirit that is prepared to handle abundance, a mind that is open to wisdom, and a soul that is aligned with purpose. The seeds planted in patience yield fruits that are richer, deeper, and more sustaining than those hurried into existence by force, fear, or impatience. Patience also transforms our perspective on life. When we embrace divine timing, we begin to see delays not as setbacks, but as part of a grand orchestration, a larger story that unfolds with precision and care. We begin to understand that the universe is not against us, that our waiting is not in vain, and that every experience, no matter how challenging, contributes to our growth, our understanding, and our readiness for what is to come. Divine timing allows us to move through life with grace rather than anxiety, with hope rather than despair, with confidence rather than doubt. It shifts our focus from what we lack to the richness of the present, from what is yet to come to the beauty of what is now, and from frustration to gratitude. The practice of patience is nurtured through reflection, prayer, and trust. It is cultivated in moments of stillness, when we quiet the mind, listen to the whispers of our soul, and open ourselves to guidance. It grows in moments of challenge, when we face obstacles that seem insurmountable and learn to rely not on our strength alone, but on the timing and wisdom of God. Patience deepens as we witness the unfolding of past delays that eventually revealed blessings we could not have anticipated, as we remember that every moment of waiting has prepared us for something greater than our imagination could conceive. Divine timing teaches us that the delay itself is a blessing, that the wait is a sacred period of preparation, and that the unfolding of life's plan is always precise, intentional, and perfect. Human impatience often drives us to act prematurely, to grasp for what is not yet ready, to make decisions before the time is ripe, and to force outcomes that are not aligned with divine orchestration. Yet, when we surrender to divine timing, we discover a serenity that allows us to act with clarity, discernment, and wisdom. We learn to move when the time is right, to speak when the message is ready, and to embrace opportunities when they are perfectly placed before us. Patience allows us to navigate life with discernment rather than haste, to respond with wisdom rather than reaction, and to live in alignment with God's perfect plan rather than our impulsive desires. Divine timing is evident in the natural world, in the seasons, in the rhythm of growth and decay, in the cycles of day and night, in the blossoming of flowers and the bearing of fruit. Everything unfolds in its appointed time, neither rushed nor delayed, each event harmonized with the greater order of creation. If we observe closely, we see that what is planted in winter bears fruit in spring, that the rivers carve their paths over centuries, that the stars follow trajectories that we cannot alter. Human life, too, is subject to this divine rhythm. Patience is the bridge between our longing and the fulfillment of our desires, between our effort and the realization of our dreams, between our prayers and the manifestation of blessings. Trusting this rhythm allows us to participate in life fully, without unnecessary anxiety, without force, and without the illusion that we must control everything to succeed. Divine timing also teaches us to honor our own growth and readiness. Often, we desire outcomes before we are fully prepared, opportunities before we have acquired the wisdom to handle them, and success before we have cultivated the resilience to sustain it. God's timing is perfect because it coincides with our readiness. Patience allows us to develop the qualities needed to receive and steward the gifts we long for. It teaches us humility, persistence, and endurance. It cultivates discernment and maturity. It prepares our hearts to embrace blessings fully, to steward them wisely, and to share them generously. In this way, patience is not merely waiting. It is an active, sacred engagement with the process of becoming who we are meant to be. Life is filled with moments that test our patience, relationships that seem stagnant, careers that progress slowly, dreams that appear delayed, and prayers that seem unanswered. Yet, within each of these moments lies the opportunity to deepen faith, to cultivate trust, and to align with divine timing. Patience becomes a discipline, a spiritual practice, and a declaration of trust. Each day that we choose patience, each moment that we release control, each breath that we take in surrender, strengthens our connection to God's perfect timing and reinforces our ability to navigate life with grace and purpose. In the midst of waiting, we learn the value of persistence, the strength of endurance, and the depth of hope. We discover that patience is not passive resignation, but active engagement with life, informed by trust, guided by faith, and nurtured by love. It is a state of being that allows us to flow with the natural course of life, to embrace each season with acceptance, and to recognize that what is meant for us will arrive at the precise moment it is needed. Divine timing ensures that the timing of blessings, opportunities, and growth aligns with our preparation, our readiness, and our journey, creating a harmony that cannot be achieved through human haste or control. Patience also reshapes our expectations. We learn to appreciate the present, to honor the process, and to recognize the subtle ways in which life is unfolding in our favor. We begin to understand that every delay, every challenge, every period of waiting is a building block, a step, and a teacher. Life's moments, whether joyous or challenging, are all part of a perfect sequence that prepares us for what is coming, that strengthens us for the journey, and that refines our character, our heart, and our spirit. The rhythm of divine timing assures us that nothing is wasted, nothing is missed, and nothing is out of order. As we embrace patience, we also cultivate gratitude, for the act of waiting invites reflection on how far we have come, how much we have grown, and how many blessings have already manifested. Gratitude softens the impatience, illuminates the lessons, and enriches the soul. It allows us to move through life with joy rather than frustration, with hope rather than despair, and with a profound trust that God's timing is indeed perfect. The moments that once seemed long or unbearable become opportunities for growth, moments for preparation, and chapters in the story of our lives that are unfolding precisely as they should. Living fully requires letting go and believing completely. It is a principle that resonates deeply within the human soul, a calling that invites us to release the burdens we carry, the fears that bind us, and the attachments that weigh us down. Life is often filled with moments where we cling tightly to past mistakes, to unfulfilled dreams, to expectations of ourselves and others, to circumstances that no longer serve our growth. Yet, in the act of letting go, we discover a freedom that allows us to breathe fully, to walk lightly, to open our hearts wide, and to step courageously into the richness of life as it was meant to be lived. Letting go is not surrender to defeat. It is an affirmation of trust, a declaration that we are willing to place our lives in the hands of a higher power, that we are ready to release control and embrace possibility. Believing completely is the companion to letting go, for faith and trust are inseparable. To believe completely is to trust that life, guided by divine wisdom, unfolds in ways that are perfect, even when unseen, even when uncertain, and even when the path is unclear. Many of us struggle with letting go because we fear loss. We fear that releasing our grasp on plans, relationships, outcomes, or possessions will leave us empty or vulnerable. Yet, paradoxically, it is precisely the act of holding on so tightly that creates emptiness and tension in our hearts. To live fully, we must recognize that true security does not lie in possession, control, or certainty, but in our connection to God, in our faith that He is guiding, protecting, and providing. When we let go, we create space for blessings that were previously unseen or inaccessible. We allow the current of life to carry us toward opportunities, people, and experiences that align with our highest good. We open ourselves to the fullness of existence, to joy that cannot be measured, to peace that surpasses understanding, and to love that knows no boundaries. Letting go is both an act of courage and an act of wisdom. Courage because it requires stepping into the unknown, releasing the familiar, and trusting that we will be guided even when the next step is unclear. Wisdom because it recognizes that attachment to outcomes, control over circumstances, and clinging to expectations often limit growth, block opportunity, and prevent the emergence of divine blessings. When we learn to release what no longer serves us, we free our hearts to receive what is meant for us, to embrace what is unfolding, and to move through life with grace, clarity, and confidence. Letting go is a conscious decision, a daily practice, and a spiritual discipline that aligns our hearts with the flow of life and with the divine plan that is greater than our understanding. Believing completely requires the same courage that letting go demands. Belief is more than hope. It is more than wishful thinking. It is a deep, abiding trust that God is working through our lives with purpose, precision, and love. Belief is an unwavering certainty that even in the face of challenges, disappointments, and setbacks, there is a path forward that leads to growth, fulfillment, and joy. To believe completely is to silence doubt, to quiet the voice of fear, and to anchor ourselves in faith. It is to recognize that life's difficulties are not punishments or misfortunes, but opportunities to strengthen our trust, to cultivate resilience, and to witness the unfolding of divine grace. Living fully demands a harmony between letting go and believing. One cannot exist without the other. Letting go without belief leads to emptiness, uncertainty, and despair, for the act of release is unsupported by trust. Believing without letting go leads to tension, frustration, and stagnation, for faith is constrained by attachment, fear, and control. When we integrate both, we cultivate a life of balance, clarity, and abundance. We move through challenges with poise, embrace opportunities with confidence, and experience each moment with gratitude, presence, and wonder. Living fully becomes not a goal to be achieved, but a state of being to be embraced, a practice to be refined, and a journey to be savored. The process of letting go and believing completely is neither simple nor immediate. It requires reflection, prayer, and self-awareness. It requires us to examine the areas of our lives where we cling unnecessarily, where we resist change, where fear dominates our decisions, and where doubt undermines our potential. It calls for honesty, courage, and humility, as well as the willingness to trust that God's plan is more expansive, more perfect, and more loving than our own. Each moment of surrender, each act of faith, and each decision to release control strengthens our ability to live fully. It is a gradual unfolding, a journey of growth, and a testament to the resilience of the human spirit when aligned with divine guidance. Letting go often involves releasing the past. We carry memories, regrets, grievances, and attachments that weigh heavily upon us, shaping our perceptions and limiting our potential. To live fully, we must confront these attachments, acknowledge their presence, and intentionally release them. Forgiveness of self, of others, of circumstances is a vital component of this process. Forgiveness does not erase what has happened. It does not condone harm or forget pain. Rather, it liberates the heart from the burden of resentment, anger, and judgment, creating space for peace, love, and possibility. Believing completely reinforces this release, providing the confidence that by letting go, we are not abandoning ourselves, but aligning with a higher purpose and opening ourselves to blessings that exceed our understanding. Fear and doubt are natural companions to the act of letting go. The mind resists change, clings to certainty, and questions what is unseen. Yet, when we embrace the courage to release control, we discover a resilience within ourselves that we may not have recognized. Fear loses its dominance, doubt diminishes, and faith emerges as the guiding force in our lives. Believing completely allows us to move forward with confidence, trusting that the unknown is not a threat but an invitation, a call to participate in life with openness, courage, and joy. It allows us to navigate uncertainty with clarity, to approach challenges with hope, and to engage fully with opportunities without hesitation or hesitation born of fear. Living fully also involves embracing the present moment. Too often, we are tethered to the past or anxious about the future. We relive mistakes, regret decisions, and mourn opportunities lost, or we worry about outcomes yet to come. Letting go frees us from this bondage, allowing us to inhabit the present with awareness, gratitude, and intention. Believing completely enhances this presence, for faith grounds us in trust, reassuring us that the unfolding of life is guided, purposeful, and meaningful. Together, letting go and believing allow us to participate fully in each moment, to appreciate the beauty and abundance of life, and to act with authenticity, courage, and love. The act of letting go and believing completely also transforms our relationships. When we release expectations, control, and judgment, we create space for genuine connection, empathy, and understanding. We allow others to be themselves without imposing our will, and we engage with love and compassion rather than fear and suspicion. Belief strengthens this practice as faith encourages trust in others, trust in God's orchestration of relationships, and trust in the inherent goodness and potential of people. The result is a life enriched by meaningful connections, harmonious interactions, and a sense of belonging that comes from living in alignment with divine wisdom. Living fully requires courage in action, not just in thought. It demands that we step into opportunities even when outcomes are uncertain, that we embrace challenges even when fear arises, and that we pursue dreams even when obstacles appear insurmountable. Letting go allows us to release the paralysis of doubt, while believing completely empowers us to act with confidence, conviction, and clarity. Together, they create a momentum that propels us forward, allowing us to move through life with purpose, resilience, and joy. The soul thrives in this balance, the spirit flourishes, and the heart experiences the fullness of life that is available to those who trust and surrender. The journey of living fully is ongoing. It is not a destination to be reached, but a way of being to be cultivated each day. Each sunrise presents a new opportunity to release what no longer serves us, to embrace faith over fear, and to trust that the unfolding of life is perfectly timed and divinely orchestrated. Each encounter, challenge, and blessing becomes a moment to practice letting go and believing completely, to exercise courage, to nurture hope, and to engage fully with the abundance of existence. Life is a sacred tapestry, woven from experiences, relationships, and lessons, and our participation in this tapestry is richest when we release attachment and embrace faith. When we let go and believe completely, we discover that life's richness is not found in control or certainty, but in trust, surrender, and openness. We realize that the fullness of life is available in every moment, in every breath, in every decision to move forward with courage and faith. The heart that lets go and believes becomes resilient, joyful, and radiant. It navigates challenges with grace, celebrates victories with humility, and engages with the world with love and purpose. In this state, life is no longer a series of struggles to manage, but a journey to experience, a gift to honor, and a calling to embrace with courage, wisdom, and gratitude. The practice of letting go and believing completely also fosters inner peace. Anxiety, worry, and tension lose their grip when we trust in the unfolding of life and release our insistence on controlling every detail. We learn to move with flow rather than resistance, to embrace uncertainty as a natural part of existence, and to find comfort in the knowledge that divine guidance is present at every step. This peace does not depend on circumstances, but arises from alignment with truth, faith, and surrender. It is the foundation for joy, resilience, creativity, and meaningful engagement with life.